Hello and welcome to another video, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at Pythagoras' theorem, and we're going to be using this theorem to calculate the hypotenuse in a right angled triangle. So what I mean by the hypotenuse is the longest side in a right angled triangle. Now I'm not going to actually prove the theorem in this video, I'm going to do that in a separate video. So this video is all about getting practice with actually using the theorem. So what is Pythagoras' theorem? Let me just write down a definition of the theorem first. So here is the theorem, and it states that the length of the hypotenuse squared, so this is the hypotenuse, it's always the longest side of a right angled triangle. So if we square this side length, well, that is going to be equal to the sum of each of the shorter lengths squared. So this is a bit of a mouthful, but what it's basically saying is that this squared is equal to this squared plus this squared. So we square each of the shorter lengths, we add them together, and that gives us this squared. So there is a formula for Pythagoras' theorem, so let me just write that down as well. So here is the formula that you'll typically see for Pythagoras' theorem. It won't always be the same because you might have different letters in the formula, but generally A, B and C correspond to the three different side lengths. So A and B are the shorter side lengths, so the order doesn't matter. So this side length here could be A and this could be B, or vice versa. I could switch these round, but C is always the hypotenuse, which is this side length here. So we know, according to Pythagoras' theorem, that this squared plus this squared is equal to the hypotenuse squared. So the first thing I'm going to do is square each of my side lengths. So what is 3 squared? Well, that will give us 9, and 4 squared is 16. So now we've squared each of our side lengths, we just need to add them together, and that will give us this side length squared. So what is 9 plus 16? Well, that will give us 25. And remember, that's not our final answer because that is the hypotenuse squared. We just want the hypotenuse. So the final thing to do is just take the square root of our answer, and the square root of 25 is 5. So our answer for the length of the hypotenuse is 5. Now I prefer going through it visually, but let's go through the formula anyway. So let's just substitute in the values we've got for A and B. So for A, we're saying A is 3, so we're going to have 3 squared. And then for B, B is 4, so we're going to add on 4 squared, and we're saying that that's equal to C squared. So 3 squared, well, that will give us 9. 4 squared is 16, so we've got 9 plus 16 is equal to C squared, and 9 plus 16, that is 25. So we've got 25 is equal to C squared. So to work out what C is, we just need to take the square root of both sides. Usually, if we're taking the square root, we would have two values, plus or minus 5. But because we're only dealing with a length, you can't have a negative length. So we're only going to take the positive version. So the positive square root of 25 is 5. So we're going to have 5 is equal to C. So hey presto, we get the same answer. Okay, I've got one for you to have a go at now. So what I'd like you to do is calculate the hypotenuse of this right angled triangle. Okay, so first of all, we need to square both of these side lengths. So 5 squared, well, that will give us 25. And 12 squared is 144. And now we've squared them, we need to add them together, and that will give us our hypotenuse squared. So 25 plus 144, that gives me 169. So that is my hypotenuse squared. So to calculate the hypotenuse, I just need to take the square root of this number. So you can use a calculator for this, but I know my squares and square roots up to a certain number anyway. So I know that the square root of 169 is 13. So the answer for the hypotenuse is 13. Okay, I'm going to give you some more practice now. So I've got 9 questions here that I'd like you to have a go at. And for each question, you need to calculate the value of x. So x is always going to be the hypotenuse, and give your answer to 2 decimal places, and you can use a calculator. So pause the video and have a go at these 9 questions. Okay, the first one here. So first of all, let's square each of these sides. So 5 squared, well, that will give us 25. And 8 squared, well, I know that 8 squared is 64. So now we do 25 plus 64. Well, that will give us 89. So we know that the hypotenuse squared is 89. So we just now need to take the square root of 89, and I will need my calculator for that. And my answer is 9.43. And I'm giving it to 2 decimal places, but remember to include your units. So here we are dealing with centimetres, so my final answer is 9.43 centimetres. Okay, moving on to question 2. So first of all, I'm going to do 12 squared. Well, that will give me 144. And 30 squared, I can do that in my head as well. 30 times 30 is 900. And now to work out the hypotenuse squared, we just need to add these together. So we're going to do 900 plus 144. Well, that will give me 1044. So that is the hypotenuse squared. So to calculate the hypotenuse, we just do the square root of 1044. And we get a value of 32.31. And that again is in centimetres. Now I didn't mention this before, but you should always do a dummy check of your answer. So we know that the hypotenuse is always the longest side of a right angled triangle. So the answer that we get should be bigger than both of these side lengths. Question 3. First of all, let's do 9 squared. 9 squared gives us 81. 2 squared, well, that's nice and easy. 2 squared is just 4. So we need to add these together. 81 plus 4, that gives us 85. So the hypotenuse squared is 85. So finally, just do the square root of 85. And we get 9.22. 9.22, and that is in meters. And again, it's larger than both of our shorter side lengths, so I'm quite happy that that is the right answer. Now question 4 has decimals, but because we're using a calculator, that shouldn't matter too much. So first of all, I'm going to do 3.5 squared, and that gives me 12.25. And now I'm going to do 4.2 squared, and that gives me 17.64. Now if I add these together, I get 29.89. And now the final thing is to take the square root. And I get 5.47. 5.47 centimetres. Question number 5. So first of all, 22 squared. That is 484. And now 37 squared. That is 1,369. And now we add these together. I get 1,853. And now finally take the square root of this. And I get 43.05. And this time we are dealing with millimeters. So make sure you change your units, otherwise it will be incorrect. Question 6. So let's do the 8 first, because that's nice and easy. 8 squared, well, that will just be 64. 11.5 squared, that is 132.25. And now if we add these two together, that gives us 196.25. And now take the square root of this, I get 14.01. And this time we are in yards. Now question 7, you need to be really careful because notice the units are different. So we can't use these values because we're dealing with different units. We're either going to have to convert everything into meters or everything into centimeters. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert everything into meters. So 125 centimeters, well, that is the same as 1.25 meters. And now I can do my workings out. So 1 squared, well, that's obviously nice and easy. That's just 1. 1.25 squared, well, that is 1.5625. Now if I add these together, well, that will give me 2.5625. And now if I take the square root, I get 1.60. And remember our units, so I converted into meters. So for this, my answer is going to be meters. If you did convert everything into centimeters, you should get 160 centimeters as your answer. Okay, the next one, we've got centimeters and millimeters. So again, we've got different units. I think I'm going to convert into millimeters this time. So instead of 5 centimeters, well, that is the same as 50 millimeters. And now I can go ahead and use Pythagoras. So first of all, let's square this. So 50 squared is 2,500. And now 33 squared, that is 1,089. And now add these together, I get 3,589. And now if I take the square root, I get 59.91. And let's think about our units. We converted into millimeters, so our answer is in millimeters. If you did put this in centimeters, then it would be 5.99 centimeters. And last but not least, question 9. And again, we need to convert into the same units. I think this time I'm going to use centimeters just because I've already used meters and millimeters. So 2 meters, well, that is the same as 200 centimeters. So now let's square both of these sides. So 70 squared, that is 4,900. And 200 squared, well, that is 40,000. And if we add these together, we get 44,900. And if we take the square root, we get 211.90. And that is in centimeters. So how did you get on with those 9 questions? If you did forget to convert your units on these last 3 questions, just remember to pay attention to that, because you can only apply Pythagoras' theorem if you have consistent units. Now in this video, we've only looked at calculating the hypotenuse of a right angled triangle. So in the next video, we're going to look at how to calculate the shorter lengths of a right angled triangle if we've been given the hypotenuse. So hopefully you'll join me for that video, and thanks again for watching. Take care.